So what parent alienation feels like, to me, what I experienced is the loss of a child that's still alive. I literally felt like he was no longer living. It was only years later that so when I was going through it, I was, of course, at my lowest. I would never have said this before, but I was definitely depressed and pretending like everything was still normal on the outside. I love being an open book. I've always been like that. I never want people to think I'm perfect, because on the outside, people would assume you put your makeup on, I put my makeup on, and you're dressed, and people think that you're good to go. You got it together, And I like putting that forwards. But I feel like I'm so vulnerable, and I love to be open and honest. And when it comes to this, of course, I was very secretive, very guarded, and I pretended to the outside world everything was fine. My son would sometimes come with me to work, and people knew obviously I had a son. At my old job, at the time when I was working there, I just acted like everything was normal. Whereas inside, I was the most depressed person. I would cry on my lunch breaks, cry on my way to work, cry on my way home, cry in bed, like, not just cry, like the lowest form of a human being. I don't know how to explain it. Someone could have said anything to me, the smallest, most trivial thing. They could have looked at me and I would be crying, or take myself somewhere and I would bawl my eyes out, deeply cry. And every time I would cry, I knew I didn't want to be here. I didn't know how I was going to live. It just makes you question everything. Your identity. I was a mom. I was working at the time, so I wasn't just a mom, but everything I did centered around him, my son, as it should when you're a parent. So when that's literally stripped away from you, someone that's with you full time, all the time, practically, I was so lost, and that's just not even a word that holds enough weight to explain how I was lost. Me saying I was crying doesn't not explain the genuine pain that I was in for years. Like the way I sit and talk about it now is not, again, how I would have ever have been able to speak about it. It was the toughest thing I've ever gone through, and I don't say this lightly, and I've never dealt with death, but I genuinely believe death is so final that there's going to come a period, not that you get over it, but that you just understand that person's not coming back. Whereas in my situation, it always makes me so emotional when I think about it like this, but as I truly feel, it's not final, but it's final at the same time. It's so hard to explain. Again, only if you've been through it, I think you can understand. But it does feel like you're grieving a child that is not alive. That's the only way I can explain it. That's the only way I could, even at the time, explain it to myself and how I was feeling. You just question yourself over and over and over and over again. And then you feel insane. You feel crazy at a point, because it's like, when it's happening to you and you're finally speaking up, only one would know that when you've held something in for so long and then you start talking about it and people don't believe you, or they're showing you, it feels like they're showing you that they don't believe you without saying it, that's enough to drive someone nuts. And in my opinion, to this day, I don't know how I'm still standing here. I don't. It was the toughest thing I've ever gone through. And I don't say it lightly, like I say, but this will forever be the thing that changed the whole course of my life, with everything that I went through. I even went through a miscarriage at 16 weeks, obviously years later, and I was so sad about it. This was very much a super planned baby, a wanted baby. And I just remember thinking, you've gone through worse. I can get through this. I literally thought that in a time of being really sad, obviously, losing a baby so late. And I always questioned if I'd be a mum again, if I'd get that chance when I was going through everything. So that was a hard time. And then seeing Rob, my partner, go through those emotions as well. But me also, I was not numb to it because I definitely was emotional. But the amount of tears I had cried over my son and my situation, I almost was numb to losing. It's really hard to explain, but that's one way that it shaped me. I know, I have no doubt that I'm going to face more things in this life that's not going to be easy. So I know that I'm going to face more things. But if I can get through everything that I went through, the shame, the embarrassment, people almost telling you you're lying, not directly like that, and just feeling so embarrassed and so helpless, especially in a situation where it shouldn't have been this difficult for people to see black and white, you know, the truth and the lies. It does something to you. And I wouldn't say it's a positive thing. There's nothing positive I would say about how it's shaped me. I don't think there's anything positive. It's made me definitely less trusting, oh my goodness, of people. And for a long time, I felt like I needed to record every single thing to ever avoid being in a situation where someone could ever make me feel like I'm a liar. I have that to this day, but nowhere near to the extent I had it when I was going through everything. Like for a good 3 years, even at work, just the most random, stupid things that happen in the workplace, like genuine, trivial things, not big things, genuine, stupid, trivial things. I would always think, I need to be 5 steps ahead, like record that just in case, or prove that I was here at this time. Like I would take pictures of the sky on my phone in the height of everything happening, just because of all the false accusations that was being made against me, to prove that I was at this place at this time. Like the level at which I would hold myself accountable for being, like, I had to control, I could not control my environment, but I really needed to make sure that I was controlling any narrative that could happen in the future to do with my situation, and completely things that were absolutely nothing to do with my situation. So it turned me into a person. It was bad. That's what I'll say. And to this day, it triggers me when I feel not believed. Not that that even happens often, but even just silly things like, oh, no way, someone will say that naturally. And my spidey senses are like, okay, this person thinks I'm lying. You know, it carries a lot of weight. Lying is another thing. Like, I've always not respected or had any time for liars, but oh my gosh, that's to another level as well. Like, be honest. Like, that's how I feel now. That's the level I am at now. Like, you can't lie to me and we're going to have any form of friendship or relationship. Like, so that's something that's come from that. Yeah, and going back to in the moment of when those things were happening and I was at the height of it. So it happened in 2019 is where it started. Well, it started in end of 2018, but everything sort of started when I was separated. I say separated, when I started to be alienated from my son in 2019. And then it wasn't until about 2023 or 2022, I believe it was, when my health needed to take priority. So I was pregnant again so I had my miscarriage in 2022. And then 2023 was when my rainbow baby, my Zak Zak, was born. So yeah, I kind of took a big step back from trying to fight, and yeah, something happened, and I just and I don't know how to protect this baby inside of me with the way I was responding and reacting to things, like being very emotionally upset without risking losing another baby. And I'm not saying that I lost the baby because of how I was feeling and my emotions. There was that all going on, but I was also working a lot. They never said it was anything to do with me. This is a side note. But I know there was a lot of things going on at the time. So again, that's two different things. But I just say all that to say I knew that I was not going to lose a baby through being very emotional. And when I was pregnant with my Zach, my rainbow baby, there was a lot going on. I say all that to say I said that for a reason. I mean, looking back, so a good few years after the height of everything, I realized that when I was going, I didn't really know what trauma was, but I can now sit here and I've been able to recognize for a long time that I definitely was dealing with some trauma, which I definitely still think I have, from the sound, like even now, even just the other day, if the postman is knocking on the door, like sometimes they bang, I don't know why, and it triggers me. It just takes me back to things that happened back then, right? Things happened back then. And when I was going through everything, I remember, so my son was 6 when everything started to happen. And he was not a baby. He didn't cry like a baby, obviously. He's a boy, he's 6 years old. And I didn't realize at the time, I knew at the time, but I didn't realize that I was hearing him as a baby. So there would be times when I'd wake up. But I just how gone I was, in the sense of, I would just feel like so, I don't know how to articulate it. I was just so detached from my real emotions, even though it was really happening to me. I was so emotional, so upset, so depressed, so suicidal. I didn't know how to live. I was very much aware of how I was acting, but only years later, I was like, oh yeah. I remember when I'd wake up and hear him crying for me, but at the time I didn't realize I was hearing him as a baby. I remember when I realized that years later, that was not normal to hear him as a baby. That I would have heard him as a boy. I remember hearing him crying as a baby. And that happened a few times. And so I just realized it just took me back. And back then, a few years ago, years on from the height of everything, I realized how traumatic certain things were that happened to me and how I dealt with certain things back then. I dealt with a lot, like falsely being accused of trying to kidnap my son, despite having a court order. The police seeing the court order, hearing that we had also arrangement, that there was an agreement, again, me recording, outside of the paper from the order. Anyway, again, I don't want to go into it, but I just say, I knew I was going for a lot in the moment and all the emotions and how I was feeling, but it was only years later, and even now I look back and I knew that I was dealing with a lot. I knew that, oh my gosh, the amount of random things that are being plucked out of the air. I knew that I was dealing with a lot, but I didn't realize how I was responding in a way, what's the right word, of a trauma response. I don't think that's how to say it. I probably have to write something to make it make sense. But I only sat with it after and I was like, I didn't see myself as a victim, or I knew what was happening. I was like, what the fuck is happening to me? Like, how is this happening? And people believing it with no, like, just the most random things, like I say. Like, again, you're just mad to even, yeah. It was just random things that say that could very easily be proven to be a lie. Again, something as trying to kidnap your son when you have a court order. That's how insane, again. So just stupidness and randomness like that. But the amount of things that would happen, I just realized that I was responding in a way of being traumatized. I think that's the right way to explain it. I think that's the right way to explain it. Yeah, it took me out. It feels like in my situation, because it's not always like this, I'm sure there's good professionals out there that care to, not even, you don't even have to, in my situation, you don't even have to dig to see the real, that's the most frustrating thing about it. Like, I will never understand it. I will never understand it. So, I will never understand it. But you didn't have to dig to see the truth. That's the most frustrating thing about it. You know, it was literally all there. Hard evidence that you, again, and it's not just hard evidence against hard evidence, it's hard evidence against someone plucking things out of the air, you know. I just say all that to say it was difficult. I was definitely traumatized, and I don't say that lightly. And I'm still very much triggered by that and the things that I had to go through. So now I have trust issues. And I do things now in a way to protect myself. Because the worst thing someone could do is call me a liar. Call me anything else, call me ugly, call me fat, call me anything. But to call me a liar is literally the worst thing that somebody could do. So it does, it just changes who you are. And like I say, I was a mum for 6 years, like full time, like fully, you know, the full-time parent, the go-to parent, everything, you know, every single thing that comes with that. All that I'm doing now is what I was doing back then. So it does, you lose yourself, you lose your identity, and it's like, what else am I meant to do here? On top of feeling like no one is listening to you and no one's believing you with very clear, it's a black and white situation for me, you know, and not just because I'm going through it and I know the truth, but it's not like the documentaries that you see on TV where these people are very clever, very witty, very like beyond smart, cunning. Like it wasn't any of that. So it's frustrating now when I look back on it, and then I can say it now without crying and having an actual traumatic response to it and like crying hysterically. But it's something that I will never forget. I don't forgive the people that were involved in my situation. And if that's wrong, then that's wrong. But that's me being, again, really uncomfortably honest. Yeah, I lost myself. And to this day, I do feel obviously a huge part of myself missing. And I don't know if my son has been able to live without me. And I'm glad he's been able to do that. I don't know how. I'll only know certain things, like how his life has been, hopefully one day in the future. I can already kind of think about certain things, but there's been a huge gap. So what I knew before of things, yeah, time will tell. But obviously I know that he's not being brought up by his mum, by me, and the values that I hold and the things that I instilled in him. So it's scary. I do wonder, like, I prayed against so many things, and I will continue to do that. But it is scary because you just don't know how any of your children will turn out anyway, even my boys that are living with me now. But it's just, it's the scare. The unknown is very unsettling, and so there's another whole chapter to come in the future, like, of how that will work out. But I like to hope I truly did instill in him a really solid and good foundation, which I think I did. Not because I was a perfect parent, but because I just loved him so much. And yeah, just exactly how I am now as a mom is what I gave him, you know? So there's definitely, again, fear of the unknown of how he will turn out. Again, like any other child, but of course more so because he doesn't have my guidance. That's, again, being super real and honest. Yeah, does feel like the worst thing on earth, you know, the worst thing on earth. I don't know how parents live with not knowing where their child is and how they are sleeping at night and if they're healthy. Like, I just think of those horrible situations where children get taken, you know. It's not like your child is dead. Your child is alive and you just don't know where they are and how they are. It feels like that also. That's how I feel. I've never been through that, but that's the only way I could possibly feel. Like, how do those people feel? Like, those parents feel? Like, I just don't know how they go on. And that's like sincere. Like, wow, like, how do they go on? Of course, I knew where my child was. I didn't know where he was. I knew that he was with the other, you know, his other parent. But the day-to-day of that and what that looked like, just the unknowing. And if he's safe, is he loved, is he being fed, is he being looked after? The amount of times I would think about that a day, like really trying to think about it. It does drive you crazy. Wow, there's so many emotions that parent alienation can take you through. Yeah, it just feels like a never-ending journey of doom. Like, when does this end? When does the victory happen? Like, I always thought, like, I'm gonna tell my story. Like, I wasn't speaking about it for a long time, nearly a whole year. I didn't tell not anyone, not one person. And then in lockdown, I told my family, and I started to have this. So I had a family meeting, I spoke to them, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to speak up. I have people that know what's gone on. I've got support. And I'm going to tell my truth. I've got all the evidence, everything. And it's going to be done, like, done, you know. And so for that not to have happened, I just couldn't believe it. I can just sit and see now, after so many different things that happened and like court and stuff like that, I just remember feeling helpless. And so this is what I'm going to speak about, feeling really low. I was feeling low the whole time. Like, I was feeling very low the whole time. And then when I started speaking out and seeing, people are not understanding what I'm saying. People are not even asking to look at the evidence, or even though I've submitted it, or people are not believing me. That's how it felt, by their responses or whatever, you know. And I was tired. I was crying non-stop. Like, I wasn't crying. I was wailing, begging on my knees. I was asking the Lord. I was so angry at God. And to this day, I will never understand why this happened. I will never understand it. People say, go through hard things, and they say, oh, I'm glad I went through that. Or, I went through that because now I'm in this place. And I have the most beautiful children. They're clever, they're smart, they're fun. I'm so excited to see their future. Life is a lot more calmer and peaceful, like, right now, like, more than ever, like, sitting here now in 2026. And I would never, ever, ever say, yes, I would go through that again just to be here. Ever, not in a second. No one could pay me $1 billion, billion pounds to ever go through what I went through. Like, I'm not going into full detail about every single thing, every single emotion, and the amount of years. Like, there's 365 days in a year. Can you imagine, for 2.5 years at least, being that emotional every single day, like, going through things in your every single day, like, people asking, oh, how's your son? And you're smiling, pretending, like, going to court, and then people questioning you, and someone smirking, like, looking so smug, or that knows they're getting away with literally lying on the spot. It fucked me up. It will fuck anybody up. lies, and it's just, I can't go into it, you know. But again, when I sit here and I just think, wow, it's insane. I'm not saying that lightly, it's insane. But I did get to a point of, I was tired. I just couldn't do it. And I had thought long and hard about this for a long time. I don't know how it took me so long to do what I did, but I did. I didn't attempt suicide. I really thought I was dead, like gonna die. I recorded a video for my son. I had all our things out, my passwords, all our pictures, all the information that you would ever need, like if someone's not here anymore. And I had set a hot bath as well, like early hours in the morning. And I had like, I don't know how many bottles of alcohol I had. And I had taken a whole bunch of tablets. And I woke up in hospital. And I remember hearing like beep, beep, beep. And I remember even now when I wake up, like now when I'm thinking about it, when I woke up, I felt like everything was white, and you're in a hospital, so I think the bed was white. I don't really remember. But I remember the first thing that came out of my mouth, because I remember I don't even know how I said that, because I couldn't talk properly. But I said something like, I said, am I alive? Or I said something like, am I dead? And I truly thought I was in, everything seemed so quiet at the beginning, even though I could hear the beep, beep, beep. And yeah, the doctor, the nurse or whatever I had, she was horrible. She was literally awful. She was horrible. But yeah, she said something like, yeah, why wouldn't you be? Oh, I'm going to get upset. So when you're so low, like defeated with life and everything that's happened, right? You build up over years. And then you have someone that's, again, another person that's meant to be a professional looking after you, doing their job, and you think everything's going to be okay. To be in that vulnerable situation and then just to be with, just with someone that's a nurse that's awful, that didn't help me. And I was still alive, so that was hard. Anyway, so she said, yeah, why wouldn't you be something like that? I don't remember after that. I remember typing to Rob, and was it just Rob? I think must have been just Rob. And my thoughts were thinking normal, but I was typing. I couldn't type, you know. So there was something that happened to my body. I don't know. And then I had asked if I could have some water for that woman, and she wouldn't help me have the water, basically. And my mind was thinking I was doing it, but I wasn't. My hand was stuck. I realized I couldn't do it. And yeah, she wouldn't help me, and then she eventually did help me. But all that to say, going through what I went through really did take a toll on me, and it's changed who I am now as a person because of all I had to go through. So anyone dealing with being scared to speak up about something that they've gone through, that's really hard. And then you speak up and then you're not believed. I see you, I feel you. I was guilty and naive to think that, oh, these people are going to save me and they're going to help me and everything's going to be fine, like in the movies. Like, you have evidence. Of course it's fine, you know, but that wasn't the reality. That wasn't my reality, and that's not real life. I realized how cruel this world is. Right now, here, sitting in 2026, there's real world life events going on. That's insane and unjust and so unfair. There's people going through way worse than me. Way worse. And I think if I felt so low and desperate and tired, and how are people that are going on in this world, like this horrible place. This world is nuts. This world is mad. This world is unfair, unjust. How are other people doing it, you know? So I'm very much aware. I always remember that people are going through way worse. I do. Again, not to minimize my own thing, because I know I went through a lot. But my heart goes out to those people, man. But yeah, that's what parent alienation looked like for me. It just took me out. I just didn't know how to survive, and I didn't want to survive. I didn't want to live. I remember being upset for a very long time that I was still alive and nothing was changing. I thought, okay, God's gonna... Oh, sorry, angry at God. I thought I'm alive because God wanted me to fight and I was gonna win. Like, that's what I thought, you know, I was gonna be heard. Yeah, nothing really changed, you know. It's like you can have an order, you can go back to court 2-3 times in my case, and someone cannot follow an order and stick to it. Someone cannot follow an order and not stick to it, and there's no consequences, nothing. So that was hard. It was hard. I think now I'm going to speak about how I've moved on from, not moved on, but how I've let time move forwards and accept that time is moving forwards. So I'll do that in another video. But no, I think it's important to talk about, I thought it was important that I talk about how I was feeling back then and some of the things that happened and that I had to deal with. But yeah, being silenced and feeling like you were silenced, yeah, it's nuts, it's nuts. I don't know how people in any situation where they know that they have the truth and that they're trying to speak up and then they're not believed or even directly told that. There's people that deal with being directly told that you're lying or you need to say this or you need to say that. And I just, the mental games of that and the weight of that, I understand how people decide to not live anymore. And I see them and I see them, I see them. So that's what parent alienation looked like for me and what it's done, how it's shaped who I am today. Yeah, if you need help or a reason to stay, I've got a link in my description. I definitely could have used this, I think, at a time of despair, like when I was going through the height of everything. So I'll leave that in the description. If anyone does see this that has ever felt that way, it's hard for me to even sit here and say this because I don't accept that life goes on and it will get better. I feel like even though I'm in the better now, I feel like such a hypocrite to say that because I remember not feeling, I don't even feel like that now, like worthy of better because my son is not with me and there was no justice in my situation or real resolve. But I am in a different place now. And I do have a family. I do have children that love me, that know me. And there is a way that you will be able to find a way to accept that life didn't stop when you stopped being a parent or when you stopped identifying with yourself at that time or you stopped living as you knew. I don't know how to properly articulate that, but it's so hard to say and it's so hard to say it because again, I am living in the present now. Time has moved forwards and life for me is so much happier and so much more full. I never thought I would get to this place, but I am. I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm not here by choice. But in recent times, like very, very recent times, I'm glad that I am still alive. And that took a long time for me to feel that way. Again, I'm going to speak about in the next video about how now life does look very different and how I feel now about my situation. Like I went through so much grief and I could not wait. I was so desperate to be back with my son. And whilst I still want that, that looks so different now. I want to have an honest conversation about that as well, to really, again, validate people's change of emotions over time in a situation that they more or less had no control over, if that makes sense. It's a bit kind of wishy-washy and long-winded, but this is the best way I know how to get it out. So, sorry that this was a bit heavy, but again, this is just a part of my story and a part of me. And there's been a lot of shame, so much shame with it, all of it. And so much of that shame is genuinely not mine to carry. So yeah. Links for support or any other bits of words of encouragement I can give will be in the description. And I hope there is a way that you can stick it out and make it through and know that peace, some level of peace, is on the way. That's my words of genuine hope and encouragement, not just cliche, but someone that's been through it and I understand and I get it. I see you.